तव गथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वनन्ति भूरिराजना. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on the chapter at Dakshineswar, page 523. And the date is Sunday, September 14th, 1884. You may remember that we started with Sri Ramakrishna in his room with Narendra, Bhavanat, the Mukherjee brothers, and other devotees. Rakhal was at that time staying with the Balaram Bose in Vrindavan and was ill with fever. And Narendra was preparing for his coming law examination. Now, what triggered the whole conversation was the arrival of Gyan Babu. He was a government official who had 4 university degrees. And just because of his name, then Sri Ramakrishna started talking about this path of knowledge and other things. So we're up to the middle of page 523. And Sri Ramakrishna was talking about, we'll start a little bit ahead, talking about how much of the mind has to be given to the work that we're doing, and how much of the mind can be devoted to the thought of God at the time of work. So we read this last time, and I'll read it again. A man can live in the world after attaining God. Then he can lead the life of detachment. In the country, I've seen the women of the carpenter families making flattened rice with husking machine. With one hand, one of them turns the paddy in the hole, and with the other, she holds a nursing child. At the same time, she talks with the buyer. She says to him, "You owe me 2 annas. Pay it before you go." But 75% of the woman's mind is on her hand, lest it should be crushed by the pestle of the husking machine. A man should do his worldly duties with only 25% of his mind, devoting the rest to God. Now, we often hear that when we're working, we should devote 100% of the mind to God, to the work. We should be fully concentrated at the time of work. Now, the reality is that our 100% devotion to the work is usually with a scattered mind. So we may think that we're fully focused on the job at hand, but if we really analyze the mind, we'll find that the mind is running around in different places. If we really can put 25% of the mind fully on the work, then we'll work better than we ever thought possible. If it's a concentrated 25%. And fixing the mind on God, first of all, it depends on the kind of work that we're doing, and it depends on what it means by fixing the mind on God. If it means that we have to picture the image, if it means we use the mala, then of course impossible. But if it means an undercurrent and constant feeling of the presence of the divine within, and even the mantra going on in the background, that can be fully operative and not at all affect the ability to concentrate the mind on work. In fact, it makes it better. This has been my experience, is that when I need to be most concentrated on work, best way to do it is to be fully aware of the mantra going on in the background. Somehow that helps keep everything else focused on the job. Then the Sankhya idea comes in. We can also observe, and we can watch the hands, and together with the mind and everything, we can watch it work very carefully and do everything. And no chance of making any big blunders or mistakes. When uh, we're not paying attention, that's when all sorts of things happen. People do silly things like almost cut off their fingers and everything. Yeah. But I know that if I want to make sure that I'm doing everything safely, so working the wood shop, then the best way is to be focused on repetition of the mantra. Somehow that allows the rest of the mind to be very finely focused on things. Now, if our job is on the telephone and talking to people, then of course this mantra then recedes into the background a little bit. But this the feeling can be that it's going on the whole time. There's a very nice conversation with Swami Turiyananda, where he talks about this practice of uh, constant repetition of the mantra, and at times when we have to talk to someone, that it just goes under the surface. As soon as we're finished, it'll come back up again, so that we'll have a very distinct feeling that we didn't stop it and we didn't start it. It just went a little beneath because the mind had to be focused on external things at that time, even to the point where we can repeat as we're falling asleep, and as soon as we wake up, it'll be repeating itself again. This is a type of japa that is spontaneous, and it doesn't require any effort. Ajaba japa, they call it. That it's nothing that we even repeat ourselves. The feeling will be that it's just going on, and that itself can help us focus on external things. I don't know why exactly, but it works. I'm convinced of that. It's a very helpful thing to do. So this 25% of the mind, uh, it's not that we're paying less attention. We're laser focused on what we're doing with that 25%. Now, why 25%? I don't know. Could be anything, but uh, uh, we can almost say that there's no conflict here. So 100% of the mind on one level can be thinking of God or feeling that we're the witness of everything, and 100% of the mind can be on the work, if we want to look at it that way. But uh, there's no reason to think, especially with physical type of work, so no reason to think that the mind can't be also focused on the ideal and still be able to do the work. This is why many monastic traditions in the West, also Christian traditions, they'll always have some type of uh, menial work or work with the hands, something, some product that they make and everything, because the mind is free. It really is a Sankhya idea that all the work is being done by the senses and guided by the mind, and I'm the witness. I'm observing everything, or at the same time feeling that divine presence within. We're feeling the presence of God. If we want to think that the witness is the divine within, good. If you want to think of the witness as the higher self, good. Doesn't matter. This is still keeping the mind focused on the ideal. So this is a very, very practical type of teaching that does not compromise the uh, skill required for work. In fact, I think it is helpful. It's very helpful for the work itself. And then, of course, this allows us to feel that steady flow of some divine thought within the mind, no matter what we're doing, even sleeping. That somehow, if we fall asleep repeating the mantra, at least we can have that belief and that faith that it's going on throughout the night beneath the surface. And then when we wake up, it's the first thing that we think of, then we feel that it's been going on the whole time. This is not something that everybody does. There are many people that they like to be doing chanting and other things and singing bhajans, but some people, there's a full practice of constant repetition of the mantra, this type of japa. So one should do worldly duties with only 25% of the mind, devoting the rest to God. Now, Sri Ramakrishna is going to talk a little bit about Pandit Shashadhar, because I think they've had two meetings by this time. I don't remember exactly, but he liked this Pandit. but after all, he's a Pandit. So we'll get positives and negatives. Referring to Pandit Shashadhar, the master said to the devotees, I found him monotonous, engaged in dry discussion of philosophy. Now, this is a little bit a harsher uh, evaluation than we find earlier, where he says that, yeah, I see he's softened up, and he would go to the Kali temple and uh, participate in the bhajans and everything. So uh, for Sri Ramakrishna, uh, he was a Pandit after all, even though he wasn't a very vain Pandit. He appreciated Sri Ramakrishna and everything, but still, his main path was the path of knowledge and scriptural. Uh, his lectures were all based on the Sanskrit and scriptural types of teachings and things. So for Sri Ramakrishna, it was a little bit dry. We can at least say that much. But it sounds harsh here because we know that Sri Ramakrishna had some appreciation for him. But monotonous, that means that uh, the same thing that he said about the Brahmos, that the flute has so many different notes on it. I'm just playing the same one over and over again. This neti neti, I am he, I am he. And for Sri Ramakrishna, he liked to be able to experience God in all possible ways, through a devotional path, through the path of jnana, through all different paths, and the devotional path through all different forms with all different names. So for him, everything else was a little bit one-sided. Then he continues, he alone who after reaching the Nitya, the absolute, can dwell in the Lila, the relative, and again climb from the Lila to the Nitya, has ripe knowledge and devotion. Sages like Narada cherish love of God after attaining the knowledge of Brahman. This is called Vijnana. Now, this language that Sri Ramakrishna uses, uh, we find it throughout the entire gospel. This Lila and Nitya. So Nitya here, it's translated as the Nitya is the absolute and Lila the relative. So we can say that Nitya is that, and Sri Ramakrishna makes a big point that they're not two different things. That they're both real and they're both the same ultimate reality, looked at from different ways. So if we think of the ocean, then we can think there's only one body of water. This is the ocean. If there are no waves, then it's just all one. Even if there are waves, it's just name and form. There's nothing separate about it. It's all water, whole thing. This will be the Nitya. Looking at it from the point of view of Lila, we enjoy the waves going up and down. We can float in them. We can swim in them. We can surf in them. But one and the same reality. Now, from the point of view of experience, that Sri Ramakrishna also talks about this Lila as the path that we take climbing up to the roof. When we get to the top, then that's reaching the level of the Nitya. So this also goes to the experience of the different levels of meditation and samadhi. So this level of the Nitya uh, will be that state of oneness in Brahmajnana. It may be nirvikalpa samadhi. It may just be that full realization that I am one with that reality, or disappearance of the ego, mind being merged in Brahman, no experience at all, no experiencer there. It may be anything like that, but it's no longer in the relative plane, and we no longer experience the variety of the world. We don't see any of this name and form. The mind is not even functioning in any normal sense in that state. So this is, and this lila, it has, of course, the sense of play and sport, that it may be real, but don't take it too seriously. It's not just a dream. It's not just Maya. It's not just the result of ignorance, something like that, but it's fleeting. it's fleeting, and it'll come and it'll go, and it'll all get swept into the past. And don't take it too seriously. We can say the play of the Divine Mother. So this is that uh, way of understanding, a very common theme, even in Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta talks about these different levels, Vyavaharika and the Paramarthika, that whenever Vedanta is talking about uh, explaining perception by the object coming in through the senses and all of that, or explaining this uh, Pratibimbavada, that we're seeing the reflected sun in the container filled with water, that this is from the relative point of view, where we accept the reality of this external universe, and we see God uh, reflected, Brahman reflected in that, and God dwelling within the heart. This is all true from the relative point of view. There may be a higher point of view where we won't speak in these terms. Nothing exists but Brahman. That we could, now, how does all of this relative come into being? The uh, real jnanis will say through Maya, and those who are a little bit more on the devotional side will say the play of the Divine Mother or Shakti, something like that. But it's still the same basic categories. It's just giving it a different overlay here of devotion, and a little overlay of playfulness. This is Ramakrishna's own terminology. I don't know if there are other schools that actually use this Nitya and Lila, these two particular terms, but it's very, very appropriate for his particular way of looking at this world, that this is a play of the Divine Mother. And because it's a play of the Divine Mother, it's inscrutable. We shouldn't expect to be able to understand the why and how of it. This is the whole point of this Mahamaya, that she makes the impossible possible, and it's achintya. It's beyond the realm of logic and reason. So for Sri Ramakrishna, there was a class of jnanis. They only want to get to the roof, and they only want to transcend the relative, and they do it through this neti neti. And when they get to the roof, that they'll have accomplished what they want to, and perhaps emerge in the one with Brahman, and give up the body. Now, there's another class that sometimes Ramakrishna will say that this is restricted to the Ishvarakotis. Sometimes he'll say that there are those who cherish devotion. Sometimes he'll say that they get there through a path of devotion. But at any rate, that they can come down from that state, and they can have a devotional attitude and a relationship with God, even if they experience absolute oneness in that higher state, even if at that state they realize that that's the only true reality. Everything else is just a play somehow. When the mind comes back down again, and the sense of I comes back down, they have that ripe ego at that time, that they'll be perfectly happy and content and take joy out of a relationship, because a relationship requires ego. I have to have a sense of who I am in order to have a sense of who God is, and to establish a relationship and enjoy that type of relationship. So he says that sages like Narada cherish love of God after attaining the knowledge of Brahman. This is called vijnana. Now, this is vijnana. How does this differ from jivan mukti, living in the world as a free soul? The only difference is jivan mukti. Generally, we understand this from the point of view of the path of knowledge. Generally, not that we won't have similar concepts in the path of devotion, but generally the idea is that they live in the world only because of past karma, live like the dried off leaf, that they don't have anything to accomplish, that just live perfectly content with everything. and full knowledge of their true nature, and seeing this world as a kind of shadow world, something like that. Now, Sri Ramakrishna accepts that, and he says there are Vijnanis like that who maintain the ego of knowledge. That Shankaracharya was like that. So it's a question of personality. It's a question of what is the path that we took to reach the goal, a question of what it appeals to us, maybe a question of karma, but there'll be different classes of Vijnanis or Jivan Muktas. Some can be very devotional and go about singing and dancing with great joy, and some will see this world as a world of dreamlike world of shadows, uh, and feel their oneness with Brahman at all times. Uh, there'll also be Vijnanis, according to Sri Ramakrishna, because he always mentions Shankaracharya, who was also a Vijnani who kept the ego of knowledge. And that others, Chaitanya Deva, he kept the ego of devotion. Mere dry knowledge is like an ordinary rocket. Now, there's a rocket, this is a booster thing. Usually it's with these fireworks. I don't know what they call them, but you'll shoot one, then there'll be another one that'll come out of it, then another one that'll come out of it. Mere dry knowledge is like an ordinary rocket. It bursts into a few sparks and then dies out. But the knowledge of sages like Narada and Shukadeva is like a good rocket. For a while, it showers balls of different colors, and then it stops. Again, it throws out new balls, and again it stops, and thus it goes on. Those sages had prema, love for God. Prema is the rope by which one can reach Satchidananda. Now, this is a new idea that he's bringing in here. This is not uh, something for those who have already realized, but this is also the language that Swamiji uses, that bhakti is the cord, the rope, that we start out as dualists. He says, everyone starts out as a dualist in the path of devotion. We feel God is there, we're here, some type of separation. And through this cord of love, we get closer and closer and closer until that gap gets eliminated, and we realize or oneness, or at least we attain a state of union with God. So those sages had prema for God. Prema is the rope by which one can reach Satchidananda. The master finished his midday meal and rested a few minutes. Bhavanath, M., the Mukherjee brothers, Hazara, and several other devotees sat down under the bakul tree and began to converse. The master stopped there a while on his way to the pine grove. Hazara to the younger Gopal, please prepare a smoke for him, meaning the master. Master smiling, why don't you admit that you want it? All that. Mukherjee to Hazara, you must have learned much wisdom from him, meaning the master. Sri Ramakrishna is in a very light mood. Master smiling, no, he has been wise like this from his boyhood. All laugh. Presently, Sri Ramakrishna returned from the pine grove. The devotees noticed that he was in an ecstatic mood and was reeling like a drunkard. After reaching his room, he regained the normal state. Many devotees gathered in the room. Among them was a newcomer, a sadhaka from Konnagar, who looked over 50 years of age and seemed to have great vanity of scholarship. This is going to turn out to be one of the least likable characters that shows up in the entire Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Very arrogant type of person, and how patient Sri Ramakrishna is with him. The master stood in the middle of the room and suddenly said to him, he came here, Narayan. You remember this student of M's, Narayan, and his parents didn't like him to go. Sometimes he had to sneak out. So whenever he went, Sri Ramakrishna was very happy, but he warned him, don't get in trouble at home. Narendra was engaged in a discussion with a Hazara. Yeah, Narendra and Hazara were good friends. For some reason, or Narendra Swamiji, he made friends with all different types of people. He really enjoyed the company of Hazra, who used to criticize everybody and everything, and he would defend him also. And he enjoyed the company of Girish, so much older. His life was so sketchy, we can say. And then later we'll find this Ananda Gupta, Guha, that everyone questioned who was this character, and they were good friends. So this was the nature of Narendra. He liked everybody and got along with everybody. So Narendra was engaged in a discussion with Hazara and a few others on the veranda. They could be heard from the room. Master, referring to Narendra, the chatterbox, but he is now much worried about his family. Now, this, of course, was after his father died, and they were facing terrible poverty. M. Yes, sir, it is true. Master, once he said that he would look upon adversity as his good fortune. Isn't that so? And now he's saying this in kind of a mood of pique a little bit. Yeah. Why was he so bold to say something like that? Look, it's really happened. Yeah. M. He has great strength of mind. A devotee. Does he lack strength in anything? Pointing to the sadhaka from Konnagar, a devotee said to the master, Sir, he has come to visit you. He has some questions to ask. The sadhaka was seated erect, his chin up. And now this is M's very sly way of indicating that he's a show-off. Sitting there with the back straight and head up, just to show the real yogi, and there's something very special about him. Sadhaka, sir, what is the way? Now, we get this question all of the time. We don't know how he said it, but my impression is that others would really say, sir, what is the way? And his is challenging. That you have to tell me, sir, what is the way? Master, faith in the Guru's words. Now, Sri Ramakrishna will give so many different answers to this, depending on the nature of the person asking the question. And here he begins faith in the Guru's words. Very often he'll say bhakti alone is the real thing. He'll give different answers. Sometimes he'll emphasize keep holy company, prayer, all sorts of different things. So for some reason, he's starting out faith in the Guru's words. One attains God by following the Guru's instructions step by step. It is like reaching an object by following the trail of a thread. Now, maybe he senses that this sadhaka, being so proud, relies on his own intelligence. There are many people, they don't like this idea of a guru because who is more intelligent than I am? Why should I trust somebody else to tell me what to do? I know what's best for myself. And so the first thing is faith in the Guru's words. Sadhaka, is it possible to see God? Now, look at the difference between when Narendra came and said, is it possible to see, have you seen God? And when this fellow, when he's going to say, have you seen God? Narendra with the perfect longing to get that answer, and this person challenging. So first he says, is it possible to see God? Master, he is unknowable by the mind, engrossed in worldliness. So if this sadhaka has any sense, he'll understand that automatically you're eliminated. That you show here come up with such arrogance and everything that don't ask possible or not possible, ask, am I qualified? One cannot attain God if one has even a trace of attachment to lust and gold, but he is knowable by the pure mind and the pure intelligence. The mind and intelligence that have not the slightest trace of attachment. Pure mind, pure intelligence, pure Atman are one and the same thing. Now, this is something that we hear from Sri Ramakrishna very often, that he seems to have gotten from Totapuri. And Totapuri used to say that we also merge the mind into the buddhi, merge the buddhi in the highest. Now, if we want to make an objection, but we're told in Vedanta that the mind is material, it's composed of the three gunas, that this is really a part of the Sankhya philosophy, which, as I was saying before, is accepted by Vedanta from this relative point of view. Relative point of view, we have this distinction between real and unreal, sat and asat, that which is permanent, that which is changing. We have that distinction, which will vanish in that state where we realize Brahman alone exists for the jnani. So there's no harm in that, because ultimately it'll be sublated. We had that term the other day. It'll disappear somehow, that distinction. But the other way of looking at it is to say that the mind is not really any material thing. What we call mind is just ideas that are dwelling within that ocean of consciousness. Or it's like a wave on the ocean of consciousness. So then the mind is really something conscious. The other way, they're both nice ways of looking at it. There's no right answer or wrong answer. The Sankhya point of view will really be dualistic. That Prakriti, this side, in combination with Purusha, will make it seem that the mind is a conscious thing, but it's not, Jada. But this other way of looking at it is that every mind is part of that cosmic mind. It's just like a little section of the ocean. It's all water, and that little wave on the surface is our own independent little mind. We're all like little waves. When that gets purified and when it becomes still and quiet, then it merges in the ocean. So no contradiction, a different model and a different way of looking at it. I like both of them. I think both of them were very, very helpful. It's not a question of which is right and which is wrong. Very helpful to think, yeah, that this mind is an instrument. It belongs to nature. It has its own qualities, its own gunas, its ups and downs, all of that. Also, we sit for meditation to think that this individual mind, if I make it perfect, still, and quiet, then this mind will be non-different from pure consciousness.
But Swamiji, if you do the second model that you said, that in the consciousness it's a wave that's coming of thought, then where does the buddhi come in that?
Why do you bring in all these things? Buddhi and manas are not different things. Don't get hung up on terminology. There's only one. The mind is simply whatever is functioning, whatever appears before consciousness appears through what we call the mind. We don't even know what the mind is, to be perfectly honest. We have no idea what this mind. We never come in contact with the mind. Forget about buddhi. Never come in contact with the mind. We only know things that appear in the mind. We're only aware of thoughts, memories, emotions. We've never come in contact with the mind, just as we never come in contact with matter. We only see phenomena. Swamiji makes this point that underlying what we call mind is X. Underlying what we call matter is Y. X and Y are both Brahman. So, yeah, forget about manas, buddhi, ahankara, to all of these things. We're only talking about the mind. And even the mind is nothing, is only things appearing as waves in this ocean of consciousness. And as soon as those waves stop, then we're one with that ocean. It's a very simple model. Yeah. Yeah. Terminology, categories, these hide the truth. I don't think they're always helpful. We start to think, oh, is it manas? Is it buddhi? Is it rajas? Is it tamas? What difference does it make? Huh? We know we have we suffer from anger and pride and greed and all of these things. Somebody says, well, is it more rajas? Is it more tamas? Who cares? We have to eliminate these things. Huh? We want to make the mind still and quiet and content. Who cares which model we use? Who cares if it's buddhi, if it's manas, ahankara, any of these things? Huh? These are for the philosophers to worry about. So this is very nice. I like this. Pure mind, pure intelligence, pure Atman are one and the same thing. Manas and Buddhi and Ahankara and Chitta. This is four, uh, we can say, categories that we find in the Sankhya terminology to explain what's called Antakarana. Antakarana really means the mind. It means that in inner sense. It could have been 6, it could have been 8, it could have been 100. There's nothing uh, written in stone that it has to be these four things. We could have added imagination, we could have added daydreaming. There's so many functions of the mind. These are all different ways in which the mind works. There's nothing absolute about these things. Philosophy, it's not science. It's more like art. It's like poetry. We're trying to get a sense of things, and we use categories to do it. We have no choice, and it can be helpful, and we can get lost in this maze of categories also. Somebody was asking, about these 24 cosmic principles. Now we can take this very literally. Yes, we have to start with this cosmic consciousness. From that, some type of ahankara. From that, these subtle elements and physical elements. It could have been any number of ways. We know that some process took place. When the process takes place, it doesn't come with a footnote. Now it's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. It doesn't come that way. Huh? This is us. We're trying to make sense out of these things. Yeah. Of course, this is my bias. I don't want to. People have great faith in these things. It exactly works this way. From that, you add an eighth of this guna to a half of the other, and yeah, I mean that's fine. I don't mind that, but to me, these are helpful in one sense, and but we have to understand it as vain attempt to logically explain something which is beyond the realm of reason. And Sri Ramakrishna emphasizes that so much, we forget it so much, that who can understand all of these things? That inscrutable the ways of God. And why do you worry so much about it? And then we forget it. Then we keep trying to understand these things with this little mind that we have. Sadhaka. But the scriptures say, from him words and mind return baffled. He is unknowable by mind and words. This is a little phrase from the Upanishads that we hear all of the time. That yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. A very common phrase that we hear, very beautiful, but it's meant to show that this ultimate reality is beyond this reasoning mind. We won't get there through reasoning. The aprapya. After going there, trying to penetrate that ultimate reality, the mind together with speech, it comes back. Sometimes we hear comes back baffled. It's such a literal translation, but that from which its definition of Brahman. What is Brahman? That from which the mind returns after failing to attempt it, the mind and speech together, after failing to reach it, that it'll come back from it because it's beyond reason. We can't get there through reasoning. So, Sri Ramakrishna just said the pure mind. He wasn't even listening. This sadhaka. All he wants to do is argue. So Sri Ramakrishna says, "Oh, stop! One cannot understand the meaning of the scriptures without practicing spiritual discipline." Yeah, the meaning is not that we can't get there through this mind or something. The meaning is that it's inscrutable, and that it's not this ordinary mind, that we have to attain or reach a higher state of mind if we want to understand these things. This what they call in Buddhism the Zen mind or Buddha mind, Buddha nature, the different ways of understanding it. So, Master, oh, stop. One cannot understand the meaning of the scriptures without practicing spiritual discipline. What will you gain by merely uttering the word siddhi? This is some concoction that they drink at the time of Shivratri and other times. That is a little intoxicant. So you repeat it, you won't feel anything. You have to actually take it, drink it. So, what will you gain by merely uttering the word siddhi? The pundits glibly quote the scriptures, but what will that accomplish? A man does not become intoxicated even by rubbing siddhi on his body. He must swallow it. What is the use of merely repeating, there is butter in the milk? Turn the milk into curd and churn it. Only then will you get butter. So we can constantly say, God cannot be realized through this mind, and then give up. Just keep repeating it. Or we can understand that, yeah, through spiritual practice, we can purify the mind, and we can transcend this ordinary mind. And through that pure mind, that Thakur says, because realization, the mind has to be there somehow. If the mind is not there, then what is the vehicle? How do we have any type of experience? Then it's the same as if somebody just took our brain and squashed it. Then there's also no functioning of the mind. Yeah. So the mind has to be there, but it'll be purified to the extent that it's almost no mind. Another Buddhist school, the no mind school of Buddhism. Yeah. So. Of course, there are different ways of understanding. Manonasha, we hear this term all of the time, destruction of the mind. But that means this ordinary mind, this rational mind. And what's left is that just pure mind, which means pure awareness. Pure awareness. So this is really that second model that we were looking at. So turn the milk into curd and churn it. Only then will you get butter. Sadhaka. You talk about churning butter, but you too are quoting the scriptures. See the arrogance of him, that he keeps challenging him. Others challenge Ramakrishna because they love him and he loves them. It's completely different. We've seen that how nicely they can go back and forth. But this is really a different type of thing. He's really questioning that whatever authority Sri Ramakrishna has to say these things. Master, what will one gain by merely quoting or hearing the scriptures? One must assimilate them. The almanac makes a forecast of the rainfall for the year, but you won't get a drop by squeezing its pages. Yeah, patient he is so far. Sadhaka, you talk about churning butter, but have you done it yourself? Yeah. So as I said, Narendra can go and say, sir, have you seen God? And he won't hesitate. Yes, I've seen God more clearly than I'm seeing you standing right in front of me. But who is this person to ask, and why should he say anything to him? So you talk about churning butter. Have you done it yourself, Master? You don't have to bother about what I have or haven't done. Yeah, a very nice way of saying mind your own business. Yeah. What is it going to prove to you if I say yes? It's not going to. You're going to be the same arrogant person you were before. And these are not things that these God-realized souls, they keep themselves hidden a little bit. They don't go around saying, yes, I've seen God to everybody. Those who will benefit from it. So you don't have to bother about what I have or haven't done. Besides, it is very difficult to explain these things to others. Suppose someone asked you, what does ghee taste like? Your answer will be, ghee tastes like ghee. So what is Brahman like? This is why we use this term anupama. There's no simile or there's no example. There's nothing that will really capture the nature of Brahman. They all help in a certain way. But ultimately, that experience is unique. There's nothing. Everything in this entire universe falls in one category, and only Brahman is on the other side. There's nothing else. So how do you compare that to anything? And these doctrines of the doctrine of reflection, the sun, these are very, very helpful. But still, if we analyze it very deeply, that we have to admit Yeah, but the sun actually has rays. It actually can contact something physical and actually can reflect on it. We're talking about consciousness. What is there that it's going to bounce off of or reflect into? So they're helpful, but they're not definitive, absolute explanations for anything. We have to have the experience. That's the only ultimate proof of any of this direct experience, anubhuti. To understand these things, one needs to live with the holy men, just as to understand the pulse of bile, of phlegm, and so on, one needs to live with the physician. Yeah, there's a footnote. According to Orthodox Hindu medicine, phlegm, bile, and wind are the three humors that control physical health. The physician can determine their condition by feeling the patient's pulse. So Thakur uses this example very often, that you can go with them and you watch what they do and how they can react to different types of pulse and how they understand these things and know it. Sadhaka. Now, again, he asks a funny question. There are some people who are irritated by others' company, obviously meaning himself, because it turns out the very people he came with, he gets irritated with. All these devotees, again, from Konnagar. The others are devotees. He's called a sadhaka. I don't know why, maybe dressed in white or something, but yeah. So then, master, that happens only after the attainment of knowledge, after the realization of God. Shouldn't a beginner live in the company of a holy man? Now, why does he say this? There's some people who are irritated with others' company. That happens only after the attainment of knowledge. I think what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, because we can be perfect fools and get irritated by other people. What he's trying to say here, I think, is that this need for holy company can't be overlooked. That we can't make up excuses that we're irritated. After the attainment of knowledge, there can be a tendency to feel annoyed if people disturb that mood. We see it with Sri Ramakrishna, that how he'll come down from the one instance that M is with Sri Ramakrishna in the carriage, and I forget where they were going, somewhere, and they'd passed Ram Mohan Roy's house. So M points out to Sri Ramakrishna, oh, this is the house where Raja Ram Mohan Roy used to live, very famous man. And Sri Ramakrishna was lost a little bit, some ecstatic mood. And he said, don't tell me these things. I'm not in the mood for that. And they got a little bit irritated. Not really, a little bit irritated, because that the mood got broken a little bit. So he's saying that God realized soul, that they reach a certain state where they'd like to remain like that. And worldly company, they can find jarring in that particular state. But for someone like this sadhaka, don't start talking about people irritating you. You learn how to deal with it, but you need holy company. The sadhaka sat in silence a few moments. Then he said, with some irritation, now he's the one getting irritated, please tell me whether you have realized God either directly or intuitively. You may answer me if you are able, or you may keep silent if you wish. The master said with a smile. You can imagine what the others are thinking. His close devotee sitting there. The master said with a smile, what shall I say? One can only give a hint. Sadhaka, then tell us that much. Then the conversation seems to end there at that time. Narendra was going to sing. He said, no one has brought a pakwaj. The younger Gopal, Mahimacharan has one. Master interrupting, no, we don't want anything of his here. Now, we have certain characters that Sri Ramakrishna, he's fond of them, and he likes them, and he praises them and almost flatters them a little bit. And then other times, he'll have a very negative reaction. The two that I can think of are this Mahimacharan and Kedarnath. Kedarnath Sri Ramakrishna praises him so many times for his great devotion. But at the same time, one time he says, take him away from here. And he was, this Kedarnath, he did all sorts of different traditions and this, some of these left-handed things and all sorts of things, and kind of set himself up as a guru. And Sri Ramakrishna never criticized him for that. And he used to ask him, what do I do? People come with the gifts sometimes. Can I take them? And he was very kind about that. But at one time, what did he do? He bowed down, grabbed his toe. Was that him? Or with Holy Mother? Huh? With him, with Thakur's. And he said, what is he doing to me? And that way he was trying to get some Shakti from Sri. So he was a little bit of funny character. And this Mahimacharan also, Sri Ramakrishna would praise him and how learned he is, and he would ask him to quote from these different hymns and things. But he knew that he also was very arrogant and thought he was more learned than others, and had a full library of books which he hadn't read and pretended he had read. So for some reason here, Sri Ramakrishna's, we don't find him make a statement like this about Mahimacharan anywhere else. But they said, no, we don't want anything of his here. A devotee from Konnagar sang a song. Every now and then, Sri Ramakrishna glanced at the sadhaka. The singer and Narendra became engaged in a furious discussion about musical technique. The sadhaka said to the singer, what is the use of such discussions? Referring to another man who had joined in the discussion, Sri Ramakrishna said to the sadhaka, why didn't you scold him too? Now he's starting to poke him a little bit. It could be seen that the sadhaka was not on friendly terms with his companions from Konnagar. Narendra sang, O Lord, must all my days pass by so utterly in vain? Down the path of hope I gaze with longing day and night. The sadhaka closed his eyes in meditation as he listened to the song. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The rays of the setting sun fell on his body. Sri Ramakrishna quickly opened an umbrella and placed it near the door so that the sun might not disturb the sadhaka. See how kind he is to him. And when probably he's just trying to show off. Sitting in the middle, starting to meditate when there's singing going on and conversation. Narendra sang again. How shall I call on thee, O Lord, with such a stained and worldly mind? Can a straw remain unharmed, cast in a pit of flaming coals? Thou, all goodness, art the fire, and I, all sin, am but a straw. The type of song that Narendra didn't like, and Sri Ramakrishna also didn't like. I don't know why he's singing it here exactly. How shall I ever worship thee? The glory of thy name, they say, redeems those even past redeeming. Yet when I chant thy sacred name, alas, my poor heart quakes with fright. I spend my life a slave to sin. How can I find a refuge then, O Lord, within thy holy way? In thine abounding kindliness, rescue thou this sinful wretch. Drag me off by the hair of my head and give me shelter at thy feet. Again he sang, sweet is thy name, O refuge of the humble. It falls like sweetest nectar on our ears and comforts us, beloved of our souls. The priceless treasure of thy name alone is the abode of immortality, and he who chants thy name becomes immortal. Falling upon our ears, the holy name instantly slays the anguish of our hearts, thou soul of our souls, and fills our hearts with bliss. Yeah, some of these songs are typical of this attitude of extreme humility we find in the Vaishnava tradition, especially in Bengal at that time. And Sri Ramakrishna very often would say, no, don't call yourself a sinner. That you're a child of God, you take the name of the Divine Mother once. How can sin cling to you? He would emphasize that much more. And then Swamiji, of course, he said to call someone a sinner. This is the worst possible thing that you can do. And who calls himself a sinner, he becomes a sinner. That the mind will get colored with that idea. But these were very common theme uh, among this in this Vaishnava tradition, especially. As Narendra sang the line, "And he who chants thy name becomes immortal," the master went into samadhi. At first, his fingers, especially the thumbs, began to tremble. The devotees from Konnagar had never seen the master in samadhi. Seeing him silent, they were about to leave the room. Bhavanath said to them, "Why are you going away? This is his samadhi." The devotees resumed their places. Narendra sang, "I've labored day and night to make thy seat within my heart. Wilt thou not be kind to me, O Lord of the world, and enter there?" Sri Ramakrishna, still in the ecstatic mood. Now, in this type of ecstasy that he's in, is he aware of things, external things? Huh? Yes? I think, we have the same question that comes up with people in a coma. That from the outward point of view, it looks like there's no awareness. But we're told by doctors, and we know that yes, they can actually hear, that there can be some. So we talked about all these different states. This conscious state, semi-conscious state, where there's some slight awareness. Mind comes down a little bit, singing and dancing, all sorts of different things. So probably in that state, still some part of the mind is hearing Narendra's song. So Sri Ramakrishna, still in the ecstatic mood, came down from his couch to the floor and sat by Narendra. The beloved disciple sang again. In wisdom's firmament, the moon of love is rising full, and love's flood tide in surging waves is flowing everywhere. O Lord, how full of bliss thou art! Victory unto thee. Now, at this time, I believe Narendra still attended some Brahmo Samaj things, and probably he used to sing with them. I don't know when he stopped exactly, but they have a huge songbook. Many of these may have been from the Brahmo songbook also. Uh, Plus, he studied these. He had tutors for almost everything. He led a very privileged life as a boy, learning the horseback riding and sports and all sorts of things. So he studied all different types of music and instruments and things. As Narendra sang the last line, Sri Ramakrishna stood up, still absorbed in samadhi. After a long time, the master regained partial consciousness of the world and sat down on the mat. Narendra finished his singing, and the tanpura was put back in its place. The master was still in a spiritual mood and said, "Mother, tell me what this is. They want someone to extract the butter for them and hold it to their mouths." So the mind is still thinking of this sadhaka from Konnagar. "They won't throw the spiced bait into the lake. They won't even hold the fishing rod. Someone must catch the fish and put it into their hands. How troublesome! Mother, I won't listen to any more argument. The rogues force it on me. What a bother! I shall shake it off. God is beyond the Vedas and their injunctions. Can one realize him by studying the scriptures, the Vedas and the Vedanta?" To Narendra, "Do you understand this? The Vedas give only a hint." Narendra wanted the tanpura again. The master said, "I want to sing." He was still in an ecstatic mood. "Mother, this is the grief that sorely grieves my heart, that even with thee for mother, and though I am wide awake, there should be robbery in my house." It's a very nice song. I often wonder exactly how to understand this robbery in my house. I was thinking about it, that I think it means even with Divine Mother dwelling within the heart, that we're somehow deprived through this Maya of that vision and that understanding, and this ego and the passions and everything come in, and they steal away that opportunity to have the direct vision of God within. I know there may be other ways of understanding it, but it's a very nice, beautiful line. Even with thee for mother, and though I'm wide awake, there should be robbery in my house. Okay, we'll stop here. We're at the top of page 527 on the chapter at Dakshineswar. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukambhatpada Vigraham Ishavataram Paramesha Bhidyam Tambarama Sirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, thank you, everyone.